It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
And a good day to you once again. I'm Brad Miller, and it is County-Wide. We're happy to welcome into studio today a guest that has been with us before, but in a different capacity. Brian Watson, when he visited with us last time, was with the Internal Revenue Service, and you spent a long time there.
28 years, Brad.
28 years, and have now kind of changed things up using the skills that you gained, I am sure, through that experience, to help with folks, especially our elder population, and the scams and some of the people who target elderly people for criminal intent. What a terrific organization you're with these days. Tell me a little bit about ROSE, Resource Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. ROSE, it's called.
So we're an Arizona nonprofit. We've been around for 2 years, and our primary focus, what we do is in-person outreach to seniors. Right now, we're primarily in Maricopa County, but seniors where they live, retirement communities, senior homes, nursing homes.
That's us.
And where we want to meet them face-to-face, give them some great information, educate them so they will not be defrauded, and then go back in 6 months because things change. And we want to just reinforce some of the things that have been shared. We definitely want to expand. I'm down in Pima County personally, but we also want to expand up into Yavapai County, possibly Coconino County as well. I've been brought on because of my media and law enforcement contacts. I love dealing with the public, dealing with law enforcement, networking, getting out there, doing what we're doing right now. I love the radio. It's such a great medium to share these stories and to warn people.
Well, and warn people. There you go. That's the word that I wanted to get to here as we air this program that we recorded a week or so ago. We just got another one from Prescott Valley Police about the elderly scam. I think it's commonly called the Facebook scam. It's got a few names, but it's this dastardly one where folks will be on the find information on Facebook or social media, contact a typically elder resident and say your son or grandson, more commonly I think is grandchild, is in peril or is under threat of arrest or things like that. And it's all to get into their pockets, and it's very effective.
It works. It's I refer to it as the grandparent scam.
Grandparent scam.
Because a lot of times the caller will call up and they'll listen to the voice, and depending if it's a male or a female, they'll say grandma or grandpa.
Sure.
And what they want you to do is respond with a child's name or a grandchild's name. And then they start this conversation, and it's high stress. The sound is not good. It's very confusing. Mm-hmm. And they think it might be their grandson or granddaughter, and they're in a panic, and it sounds of like jail doors closing behind them, and
these scammers
people
are
talking.
Good.
Yeah, they have a background soundtrack, and they say, "I'm in jail. I got pulled up. I was driving with my friend. We got pulled over. My friend had drugs in the car. They're arresting me as well. I'm going to spend the weekend in jail. Can you please help me?" And before they can really even think about it, they shift over someone else on the phone who's the so-called attorney, and they'll say, "Sir or ma'am, I'm so-and-so. I'm an attorney here at the jail. I can get your granddaughter out of prison, but you need to pay me now." And it's immediacy. And they'll actually say things like, "The judge has put a gag order in place. You're not to talk to anybody, and we only have one shot. You only get one call. We need to do this right now." And you think about it, everybody would do anything to protect their grandchild or grandson.
It hits you right where you live.
Yes.
Right where you live.
And so my first week on this job, after I retired from IRS criminal investigation and started working for ROSE, I met with my friend's father who fell victim to the scheme. And it was the scenario I just laid out. And his phone rang. The area code came up to a Phoenix area code, and he knew his granddaughter was living there.
Okay.
And, that emotion, the voice he heard, he thought it was his granddaughter.
Right.
Coupled with the caller ID, and he just reacted so quickly. And then as soon as he transferred the money and paid it, he realized right away he'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
Tried to retrieve the money, they couldn't. The reason he met with me is he basically said, "I don't want this to happen to anyone else." So you have to have a plan if you're going to get this call.
Right.
Okay, my mother, who's almost 80, has received this call multiple times. You have to have a plan. What are you going to do when you get that call?
Right.
You need to hang up, and because you can always hang up. Any legitimate law enforcement agency will let you call back and contact your grandchildren or your kids.
I saw a statistic just recently in some of the prep show that we do for the radio show. I'm going to ask you to guess how many people answer unsolicited calls from numbers they don't get. And this is across all age brackets. Guess how many? Percentage.
50%.
33%.
Okay.
Which I thought was extraordinary. I wouldn't consider doing it, and that's not elderly folks. It is closer to 50% when you start talking when the age goes up.
Right, because I think the older you are, the more likely you are to answer the phone. I mean,
exactly.
When I grew up, and I'm in my early 50s, like I always answer the phone. We didn't have caller ID,
right?
And that could be something cool going on, you know. And
that's
also
how your friends called
you.
Yeah,
but also when you're older, you're worried that maybe there's an emergency.
Yeah.
But just yesterday, I screened a phone call, and it was actually legitimate. It was a work call.
Right.
I checked my voicemail 5 minutes later. It was legit. I called back. I put that person in my inbox.
And that might be the best way to do it.
Yeah. Always screen the phone calls if you don't know who it is.
You said something before we went on microphone, and I'd like you to share it with our audience because I thought it was extremely poignant. You said, a lot of times there's going to be younger people in our audience right now, or people who are a little bit jaded or a little bit savvy, and are going to say, well, older folks, they're just not thinking. They're ignorant, or they're this, that, or the other, easily confused. And some of the times that may be true. But you said the reason these scammers target older people is because they're the ones with the money.
True. I mean, a lot of times teenagers will fall for scams on Craigslist,
right,
or click on links they're not supposed to because they grew up with a smartphone and they think everything on there is legitimate. But most teenagers have no money.
Yeah.
So
they're not targeted the same way
they're
older
not being
folks.
targeted. And, seniors are targeted because they're more likely to answer the phone.
Right.
They're more likely to be polite. They're more likely not to hang up. And then some seniors, not all, but a growing percentage, as you get older, there's a cognitive decline. There might be a dementia. There might be Alzheimer's. There might just be forgetfulness. But I know from 28 years in law enforcement, the criminals go where the biggest bang for the buck is, and they will go for the 80-plus population. Specifically. Now, there are a lot of 80 or 90-year-olds who sniff out these schemes right away.
Oh, my dad loves these kinds of calls.
Yes. So
he enjoys them.
My mom has done the same thing. She'll mess with them a little bit too.
Yeah.
But we just know, all of us lose it eventually over time.
Right.
So that's why the criminals are going after the seniors. So I want seniors out there to feel like they're not being picked on. I'm here to be your advocate and warn you. And then here's the key. You get one of these calls, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family, go on social media and share it. That's the only way we stop this is through education and outreach.
And in this particular scam, and many of them are built on similar frames, but this one, it's that immediacy where they don't give you an opportunity to do that. Perhaps you live alone or just home alone. Your spouse is out. You don't have the recourse. You don't have the time to contact the grandson or the granddaughter or whomever it may be that can help bring clarity to the situation. They are move. Before you know it, you're handed over your bank number.
Right. And I mentioned earlier the so-called fake attorney said there was a gag order. I've also heard of the criminals telling the victims to put their phone on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
So that way, if someone were to call in with the call waiting, it wouldn't even go through.
Break up their business.
And interrupt them because, time is your friend on any of these things. Have a plan. Have an excuse, a white lie. Here I am. I'm telling you to lie. If you get a call and all of a sudden you're in a little deeper than you thought, have a plan like, you know what? There's someone at the door.
Yeah.
There's food burning in the kitchen.
Yeah, right.
You got to have a plan where you can say, I'll call you back and just hang up.
Right.
Practice it if you have to.
Right.
It's these criminals are using professionally done scripts that work and they improve them constantly. And if you were to listen to a recording of one of these things, you would realize very quickly I could fall for that at any age in any time of my life.
I can't remember which local law enforcement jurisdiction put out a tape a few years ago. One gentleman who got this call, an older fella, happened to tape it, happened to record it. And I thought, these scammers are so good. I've got every 70-year-old aunt that I have back in the Midwest has been scammed on the face. I'll get a thing. Hey, I think I've been hacked. They're just a more kind of caring, trusting, I don't want to say naive, generation.
Right.
It's just, you used to be able to handshake and get an honest, and scammers don't care about that, and they know about that, and they're going to come after older folks.
Right. And that's why it's good to have these conversations ahead of time.
Right.
I chat with my mom about these scams all the time.
Right.
I tell her about them. She listens to these radio shows that I do.
Yeah.
So she knows that these calls are going to come in. She knows certain text messages are going to come in. So, but you got to talk about these things ahead of time with your parents. If you're someone in your 40s or 50s, don't wait till after the fact.
Yeah.
Reach out to them now. Say, Mom, do you know about the grandparent scam?
Right.
Mom, do you know about these text messages that claim you have a refund from this company?
Right.
Talk about it ahead of time. You don't want to be sitting there alone by yourself and all of a sudden being victimized, and then you're losing all this money.
Yeah, practice and get ready so you know how you're going to handle that phone call or an email. That's a whole nother thing, and we can talk about some other kinds of scams out there. Too many bad guys are really trying to victimize our elderly population, and it happens too often. Brian Watson is our guest today. Rose Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. We'll come back to Countywide right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Thank you so very much for your generosity and kindness in helping others. I hope that you take advantage of the many Arizona state tax credits available when giving to qualified charities and schools. If you haven't taken advantage, I hope you'll ask your favorite charity if they qualify. You can go to Arizona Department of Revenue website, search for tax credits, and look at the list of qualifying charities. Then look at your latest Arizona income tax return and see how an Arizona tax credit can benefit many. This is Lewis saying thanks again.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We welcome you back to the program. Again, it's Countywide. I'm Brad Miller, and Brian Watson is our guest. Brian is a community outreach specialist with Rose Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly, and doing just that, advocating for older folks particularly, and there's a lot of retirees, certainly in Yavapai County, and indeed Arizona and the Southwest in general. And can be kind of easy pickings for some of the scammers, simply because older people tend to be, I think, a bit more trusting, and God bless them, a little bit more caring and forgiving, and sometimes that can cause them to become victims. There's another, you sent me kind of a list of things, and this one jumped out at me because I don't know that I've heard about the funeral home scam.
Right, scammers.
What is
this summer, scammers, we're hearing reports, they're reaching out to people after reading obituaries and funeral announcements online, and if you think about it, those things are full of personal information, names, relationships, where the people are from, when they died, all kinds of things like that, the name of the funeral home. So they'll call claiming to be from a local funeral home, and they'll ask for a certain person, and they'll say, something went wrong with your payment. We need to have this go through again. And if you refuse, they basically will threaten to cancel your ceremonies and your reservation at the place. And think about it.
Here again, at a time that these folks are going to be the most vulnerable. They've just lost a loved one, and now this.
Right. So you're grieving. You're in an emotional state. You're stressing out because you have family and friends flying in from around the country.
Right.
So you're probably fielding a lot of phone calls and emails, and you might be making hotel reservations and setting up a post, a meal after the ceremony at a local restaurant, and they want the money now.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Well, I'm just going to pay it. You just do it.
I'll worry about it later.
Well, maybe there was a mix-up. We'll get it figured out. But you need to hang up. You need to hang up and say, I will get back to you. Use one of those excuses I came up with earlier. There's someone at the door.
Right.
I need to call someone back. I have food that's burning in the oven. Whatever you need to do, call them back. Don't use the number they provided. That's how the scammers also get you. You need to verify the number yourself. Go on the internet, go white pages, whatever you need to do. Contact them directly, and you'll realize you've been scammed. The scammers can spoof the caller ID to make it look like that name of the funeral home. When I say spoof, they change the caller ID, and it'll say like so-and-so, funeral home.
So let me make sure I understand it, and to help our audience, if there is a specific XYZ funeral home in Cottonwood, and my loved one is there, and the service is going to be there, they will call you, and your phone may say XYZ funeral home in Cottonwood.
Absolutely.
Well, and you're going to answer that.
And you're going to answer
it's legit.
And you're going to believe it, and they're going to say you have to do it right now, because they may even say, we have another family that wants to use our facilities that day. And you'll spend any money at that point. So there's a special place in hell for scammers who go after people in their grieving times. So there is a hierarchy of scams, and this is the worst of the worst.
I laugh, and I don't mean to sound inappropriate. I hope the audience understands that.
Well, I'm joking because
no, there should be an especially hot place.
Yeah.
For these people that you go after, elderly folks just in general, but people that are grieving and are at maybe the worst moment in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, because with all these schemes, they prey on your emotions.
Right.
We talked about the grandparent scheme. That's the emotion of losing a loved one or having one locked up in jail. In this case, they're preying on the emotions associated with grief. And that's the hook. There's always a hook in any of these scams.
I'd be curious. I know that a lot of times these things, especially on the phone, certainly with email and online, are coming from out of country. And that makes prosecution, arrest and prosecution almost impossible in an awful lot of cases. Have we ever been able to kind of get a hold of somebody who's been on the inside of that and who's bounced out and can help with some insights on this? Have you ever I know working with a different agency for a long time, but do you ever get that where you can, I'm thinking of that movie with the guy who was the big fraud. Leo DiCaprio played him in that movie.
Right.
He ended up turning and helping banks stop people like him.
Right. Catch Me If You Can was
Bingo.
The movie. And and a lot of times those people, you can use them because they really know how the scams work. With the scammers, these calls are coming from internationally, but they're also can become locally as well. It all depends on the country where it came from.
Right.
Some of these countries, there's not a whole lot of sympathy for some rich Americans losing a small percentage
some
of their
governments
money. Turn
a blind eye.
Right, because there's not a lot of sympathy. And for some of these people, they're dirt poor. I mean, the IRS impersonation scam, which was going on for 10 years.
Yeah.
People calling up and saying, you owe money to the IRS. That started out of India. A lot of the phone callers had Indian accents. But then they started using a robocall voice where you couldn't tell where it was from, or they would find people that had really good English. And then, of course, with any of these schemes, there's copycats.
Right.
And they just, it's whack-a-mole. You might put someone out of business in one country or one call center, and then they'll show up somewhere else, a copycat here in the United States or in another country. It's just like the Nigerian emails that have been going on for 30 years.
Right.
The rich prince.
You'd think they're a punchline at this point, but they still work.
I get them all the time. I actually get them in my email, and I save them because I use them a lot of times for show prep when I'm doing another radio show or if I'm doing a presentation. I can show here is a Nigerian email scam, someone promising to give you a cut of a large amount of money. And I received this last week.
Yeah.
And the reason why they keep sending these emails, one, doesn't cost them any money.
Yeah.
They can send thousands of them. But number two, and most importantly, they work.
Yeah.
Because people bite and fall for it.
Yeah. Sad. If these folks put their energies into something else, what good things could they do for elderly people or anybody else in the world?
And you're not the first host that's ever suggested that. But then you got to follow the rules. and you have to have a boss, and you have to, do what they tell you. These people they can, and they can make so much money.
Right.
Because if they hit a few big people, and that's the other thing too, is when someone's victimized, you're not just victimized and then they move on to someone else.
Yeah.
They know that you're a guaranteed victim, and they'll come back to you again.
Oh,
and again.
Yeah.
And again.
You've become a gold star customer.
Well, they'll put you right at the top of the list, literally. And they will milk you until you're gone. They will ask you to take loans.
Yeah.
They will ask you to borrow money. It's unbelievable. And then it can end tragically. I know someone with the IRS phone scam actually committed suicide because he lost so much money. And
That's
the guilt
awful.
And the embarrassment.
The embarrassment of it,
so,
sure.
People think these are just, here or there, but they will milk you dry, and they will, to the point of despair, where in that case, that guy committed suicide instead of living with the guilt and shame.
The word, because he was victimized.
He was.
Lost
multiple
it all.
times.
The humiliation.
Right.
It's awful. All right. Our guest, again, Brian Watson, talking about the dark side. There are folks out there who prey on susceptible individuals, and a lot of times that does mean elderly folks, and we have a lot of elderly people in Yavapai County. We'll come back to Countywide right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology, factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Thank you so very much for your generosity and kindness in helping others. I hope that you take advantage of the many Arizona state tax credits available when giving to qualified charities and schools. If you haven't taken advantage, I hope you'll ask your favorite charity if they qualify. You can go to Arizona Department of Revenue website, search for tax credits, and look at the list of qualifying charities. Then look at your latest Arizona income tax return and see how an Arizona tax credit can benefit many. This is Lewis saying thanks again.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We really appreciate your time. We very much appreciate the work, the outreach, that Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. ROSE is the acronym, and that is the organization that Brian Watson is with. If folks want to learn more, website?
The website is great. roseadvocacy.org. roseadvocacy.org.
Okay.
And then we're also on Facebook. That's Rose Advocacy. That'll help you find it. Follow us, get the latest information. But if you do go to our website, there's a blue box at the bottom of the page, and it says sign up for our mailing list. And we'll send out the latest and greatest scams, so you'll be up to date.
Things to look out for. Excellent. All right. Well, Brian, that's terrific. There's a lot more to talk about, and we'll do that on Thursday's program as Brian Watson returns, and we talk about things, especially folks preying on the elderly in our community and really across the nation. I'm Brad Miller. It's Countywide, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.